The first time I saw her, she was sitting on the porch steps, staring blankly at the horizon, a half-drunk cup of coffee trembling in her fragile hands. The world around her was alive, kids laughing, sprinklers ticking, the sun stretching golden rays over the sleepy suburb. But she sat there, still as a photograph, as if time had forgotten to move for her. Something about that silence, it stayed with me. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small acts to change lives, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul Call Stories, because sometimes the smallest gestures become the biggest turning points in someone's world. Her name was Mara Elridge, and she had moved into the house next door 2 months ago. No one really knew her. Curtains always drawn, mailbox always full, and lights on at odd hours. Most neighbors whispered theories: divorce, debt, depression, the usual suburban speculations. But for me, it wasn't curiosity, it was instinct. Something in her stillness felt like pain wrapped in politeness. It was a bright Tuesday morning when everything began. I had taken the trash out when I noticed the grocery bags spilled near her car. The cans of soup had rolled halfway down her driveway. I jogged over to help, and she looked startled, not angry, just caught off guard by human presence. Her hands were trembling as she bent down to pick them up, and I noticed the small bandage on her wrist. I smiled and said I could help carry the rest inside. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Her house smelled faintly of lavender and something else, dust and neglect. The furniture looked recently moved in, but the walls were bare. No photos, no warmth, just empty space echoing loneliness. I placed the groceries on the counter, ready to leave, when she softly said, "Thank you. I didn't think anyone around here would notice." I shrugged and replied, "Just being neighborly." She gave a half-smile that looked foreign on her face, and I left. I didn't know that moment, that single act of helping with groceries would begin something that would change both our lives. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing small things. A package left too long on her porch, the garbage not taken out, curtains that didn't open for days. Once, when rain flooded the street, I saw her standing barefoot at the edge of her driveway, drenched, staring at the sky like she was waiting for it to wash her away. Something about it made my chest ache. The next morning, I baked an extra loaf of banana bread badly, I might add, and walked over. When she opened the door, her eyes widened. "You baked?" she asked softly, almost incredulous. "Barely," I said with a laugh. "Consider it an edible apology if it tastes terrible." For the first time, she laughed, a faint, quiet sound that felt like sunlight cracking through a cloud. After that, small moments became routine. Sometimes I'd help her fix a leaky tap or mow her overgrown lawn. Other times she'd make tea, and we'd sit in her kitchen, no words, just shared silence that somehow felt comforting. She told me bits and pieces about her life, how she'd lost her husband, Ethan, in a car accident 6 months earlier, and how she'd moved here to escape the memories that haunted her every corner. Her voice never trembled, but her eyes did. I didn't know what to say most days, so I just stayed. I'd tell her about my work as a graphic designer, the chaos of deadlines, the funny mishaps of suburban life. She'd listen, smile faintly, and sometimes even roll her eyes playfully when I exaggerated stories. Slowly, she began stepping outside more, walking her dog, watering her plants, even waving to passing neighbors. Life was coming back into her in small, fragile doses, but grief has a way of creeping back when you least expect it. One afternoon, I found her sitting on her porch again, the same spot, the same blank stare. The mail lay scattered beside her bills, letters, one envelope with her late husband's name still on it. I called out softly, "Mara." She looked up, tears brimming, and whispered, "I thought I was getting better, but today I just feel like I'm right back there." Without thinking, I sat beside her. The air smelled of cut grass and rain about to fall. We didn't speak, Sometimes silence says what words cannot. Then, as I stood to leave, she caught my wrist and said, "Stay a little longer." It was such a simple sentence, yet it felt like the most human thing I'd heard in years. So I stayed. We watched the sky turn from blue to amber, and for the first time she leaned her head on my shoulder. That night something shifted, not in a romantic way, but in the way broken things finally start to heal when someone chooses to simply be there. Days turned into weeks. Mara began painting again. She had been an artist before tragedy took that from her. She'd show me her canvases, landscapes filled with hope, color returning where grief had drained it. Sometimes I'd bring my laptop and work beside her while she painted. Our lives slowly intertwined quietly, naturally. Then came the day I almost lost her. I hadn't seen her for 3 days, and her phone went unanswered. Worry prickled in my gut. I went over, knocked, no response. Something felt wrong. I called her name through the door until I heard a faint thud from inside. I forced the door open, and there she was, collapsed on the floor, the smell of gas faint in the air. Panic tore through me. I dragged her out, called for help, and the ambulance arrived just in time. She survived. The doctors said it was an accident, a stove leak she hadn't noticed. But I knew it wasn't just that. It was exhaustion, emotional and physical, the quiet kind of pain that steals your will to exist. When she woke in the hospital, her first words were, "You shouldn't have come. You've done enough." I shook my head, tears I didn't know I had spilling over. "I wasn't doing a favor, Mara. I was being your friend." After she was discharged, I helped her move the canvases, clean the house and fill the fridge. But more importantly, I made sure she wasn't alone anymore. She joined an art group at the community center. She laughed more. Her eyes, once dull and hollow, now carried life. And every time I'd leave after our tea, she'd say with a small smile, "Stay a little longer." It became our phrase, a gentle reminder that presence itself can heal. Months passed. The neighborhood came to know her as the woman who painted sunsets on her fence and baked cookies for the kids on weekends. No one would have guessed she once lived in shadows, and for me, the man who had just been a neighbor doing a favor, I realized she had saved me too. I'd been living a life of quiet routine, disconnected, numb to others. Helping her reminded me that we're all fragile, all capable of breaking and of rebuilding each other through something as simple as care. One day, she invited me to her first small art exhibition downtown. Her collection was titled "Stay a Little Longer." Each painting captured a moment of healing, from darkness to light, loneliness to connection. Standing beside her, watching people admire her work, I felt something indescribable: pride, peace, maybe even love, but not the romantic kind, the love that comes from witnessing someone rise again. As the sunlight streamed through the gallery windows, she turned to me with a tearful smile and whispered, "You know, if you hadn't stayed that day, I don't think I'd be here." I swallowed hard and said, "Neither would I, Mara, neither would I." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Soul Call Stories, because stories like this remind us that even in the daylight, some people live in shadows, waiting for someone to notice. Your small act of kindness could be someone's turning point, and before you go, tell me in the comments below, have you ever stayed a little longer for someone who needed you more than they said? Because sometimes healing doesn't start with a miracle. It starts with a neighbor who decides not to walk away.